nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me
Good evening and welcome to the Scottish Rugby podcast. I should just say, I've got it wrong already, Johnny. I should say hello and welcome to the Scottish Rugby podcast, because obviously a lot of you aren't going to be actually tuning in and listening tonight. So you'll have to excuse me. I'm Craig Manson. I'm going to host tonight, but I'm currently high as I possibly can be on pain meds for my back. So it's going to be an interesting night. The Scottish Rugby podcast in association with Scottish Rugby blog. As I said, I'm Craig Manson, and joining me tonight is the only guy that doesn't need hot water to wash his hands in Murrayfield, Jonny McGinty. How you doing, Johnny?
I'm very good. Do you know what? It's a testament to your character that you spotted yourself saying good evening and adjusted it. So well done, you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Johnny. I do like a wee pat in the butt just at the end of things to make sure I'm happy. And the borderist of Badgers, Mark Riley, is joining us as well. How you doing, Mark?
I'm very well, thanks. Good to talk to you both.
Good to have you on. And so you can. We also have a Patreon side. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the impending doom of the Six Nations, and then what we'll do is we'll move over to our Patreon side where we'll talk about Edinburgh and Glasgow, what they've done and what they're about to do over the next couple of weeks. If you want to join us on the Patreon side of things, you can go to www.patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast. I think, is that the right thing, Johnny? Or you can just double check.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, £3 plus the VAT. I had to remember plus the VAT because somebody has mentioned that. £3 plus the VAT per month, and you get the extra content of usually between 20 minutes and 40 minutes on Patreon, and you will get some extra chat, a little bit of swearing, and also our world famous Hands in the Ruck section where we, I can guarantee we're all probably going to agree on our Hands in the Ruck this week. Unless we want to mention Elon Musk and certain gestures, but that's a different story. We're on the Sports Social Network as well, and you can download our pod on most podcast apps. If you use Apple, please leave us a 5-star review because it's very nice of you. And you can probably tell that I've forgotten the blog, the writing piece that Rory very kindly gave me to describe all of that properly, so I've just meandered my way through it, and hopefully everyone has got their way. So, gentlemen, welcome again. And really, we got the news, and really, there's only one really big piece of news that's coming out this week, and I think we'll probably end up spending 20 minutes having a discussion about it, to be honest. All hope is lost. Sione Tuipulotu, Scott Cummings, and Dylan Richardson are out for the Six Nations. As I think, was it yourself, Johnny, or was it Ian Hay that was saying he was watching Black Lion Edinburgh and Darcy Graham was getting himself tackled by certain Georgians as well. Although he's all right, everyone. It's okay. He's all right. But yeah, Duhan also sat out training for Scotland as well. So, Johnny, are we all doomed?
we can't sugarcoat it, and we can't pretend that we're in as good a place as we were this time last week, because we are categorically not. Like, Siri Tuipulotu is in the conversation to be the best 12 in the world. He was basically nailed on as a 12 for the Lions. He is a difference maker for Scotland. Loads of people have pointed out that in the Six Nations you need a point of difference, and Siri is the point of difference. We've still got really good 12s. I don't think the sky's fallen in the way that some people are suggesting. I think we maybe need to temper our expectations a bit, but I don't think it's all over. I'm not as buoyant as I was last week, but I'm not like making a space in the cabinet for the wooden spoon either. So,
well, we've already got some comments about from a certain Fish 1167 who's basically just saying, yes, we are doomed. Cancel the Six Nations. No point in it. It's just we're losing to Wales and Italy. So he's obviously taking taking the positive side of everything. Mark, who's going to fill these gaps? Who are we going to call on? Because Gregor Townsend just keeps telling us that this is the best depth we've ever had in the Scotland squad.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, he's probably right. It probably is the best depth we've had, but sadly, the fall off between Sione and the next 12 is not insubstantial. I know we've all had wee chats on the messaging about it, and I quite like the idea of TJ going in there. And at 12, I like the idea of second 5/8 and another playmaker in there. But he might go for Hutchison. I mean, Hutchinson's playing out his skin. You probably see more of him than we do, Craig, because I know you've got the English rugby. I don't see enough of that to really make a call, but I do hear he's playing very well, Hutchinson.
Yeah, so we've just lost Jonny for a second. You probably all noticed that he had a fairly big gap in replies to us, so he's got a little issue with his broadband, but he should be back fairly quickly. Yeah, I love Rory Hutchison. Rory Hutchison is the Damien Penault of English rugby. He runs like he's just jogging down the park, but he's got such a beautiful gait on him, and his passing has got better and better and better. The problem I have is that I worry that, Jonny, he will come on. I'm sure he will come back on and absolutely sing and dance about Rory Hutchison. The problem I have with Rory Hutchison is he's not proven on the international stage, and I worry that he is almost a Johnny Matthews character, where he is a phenomenal player for his club, but when he gets up to international, he gets not found out's the wrong word, but he just doesn't seem to click. So it'll be really interesting to see. But I love watching Rory Hutchison. Some of the things that Rory Hutchison does within Northampton Saints is unbelievable. But then he's got I've forgotten the guy's name. He does the other lad that sounds Scottish as he's 13. Anyway, it'll come to me. Yeah, Fraser Dingwall. That's it. He's got him there as well, and also Finn Smith as he's 10. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. We'll have to wait and see. So, Mark, Tom Jordan, everyone is saying Tom Jordan is the sticking plaster that's going to fix all. But apart from Tom Inglis thinks he's not physical enough.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah, yeah. I actually think he's the most physical option we've got. I think that's probably why people see him as the possible replacement. I worried that he's not got the experience, but any game I've seen Tom Jordan play, he seems to just step up and do what's asked of him. I think he's definitely physical enough.
Yeah.
He's been carded often enough for Glasgow that I think you could argue he was maybe a wee bit too physical and not controlling it quite right. I think that's why I kind of think he's the logical replacement to step into Sione's shoes, because I do worry, is Hutchinson not more likely a 13 than a 12, or has he been playing 12?
It's a mixture. He plays all three. He'll step in at 10 sometimes.
Right.
He'll also play 12, but he'll also play 13. So it really is a difficult one. That's why I'm trying. That's why I kind of said, it's very easy for us to say that Hutchison is an answer for everything. But he plays really well for his club, but you just don't know, do you? What was quite interesting. Oh, sorry, when you go.
I was going to say, I even made a joke when I saw him in the squad again. I was joking with somebody and saying he doesn't even bother unpacking his bags now.
Yeah,
because he's been in every Scotland squad selected for a handful of years now and not got anywhere near the pitch. So that kind of lends a bit of credence to the Jonny Matthews point you're making, that maybe he's looking fabulous and turning up and just not doing what Tooney wants, or not showing enough of what Tooney wants at international level.
I think also the fact, I suppose, is the situation that does he get the chance to, because everyone kind of knows that it's nailed on, that especially if Sione is captain, he's pretty much nailed on that he's going to start. So and then we have the conversation of, is it a 5-2, is it a 5-3 split, or is it a 6-2 split? And if it's a 6-2 split, then basically it's Tom Jordan plus another that someone who'll cover 9 and the wing, and someone who'll cover the centres, etc. But it's a really difficult situation to look at. Trying to find others. There's talk. It was quite interesting. I was listening to again our BBC practice, and they were in camp today, and it was really interesting to hear Fergus Burke talking, because he was saying that he was really enjoying some of the patterns. They've got some new patterns that they're throwing in, and so hopefully we're going to cover up the missing Sione by really attacking in different ways. So we'll wait and see, I suppose.
Well, it's slightly it's slightly strange and unusual but every one of our opponents will have been gearing up to defend the Huey Pilotu axis, and now they don't know what to expect either. So, small mercies. I'd still rather have him playing, but while he's not, I suppose there's one small benefit we can look at,
Absolutely, and that's the one thing I was quite. You're going to sound. I'm going to sound like I listen to too many podcasts and I like too many people. But Danny Kerr was talking about that because he was talking about Harlequins v Glasgow and how they trained and they'd been ready to deal with Sione Tuipulotu and Hugh Jones, and then Tuipulotu was rested and not rested, but eventually it came out he was injured. And their game plan totally went to not pieces because they obviously won, but they were totally thrown by it because they didn't know what to do. But then there's another question then, because Stafford McDowell stepped in at 12 for Glasgow, which is a fairly natural place for him to go. How about Stafford coming in at 12?
Again, he's a big unit, Stafford. He's what, 6'2", 6'3", something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's an odd one, because I really like Stafford McDowell as a player, but he just never really gets to the forefront of my psyche where I'm going, yeah, that's fabulous play. He's great in defence, or he's great in attack, or anything like that. He's clearly a very, very good player. But I don't know if he's the answer. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if Tooney went for him, however, knowing he's already got a relationship with Hugh Jones.
Yeah. It's a definite. It's a weird one. I have to say, we joke a lot, but on our chats, we have obviously a podcast WhatsApp, messenger group, and I joke a bit, and obviously the Glasgow guys rubbed me up the wrong way because of my Edinburgh side of things, and I tried to rub them up the wrong way. But I did find that Johnny Matthews and Stafford McDowell had howlers on the weekend. I really didn't think that they played well, so it's really interesting that these players that are revered by fans and absolutely there's no reason why they shouldn't be revered with Glasgow. They have played incredibly well for Glasgow. Are they going to be good enough for Scotland? And that's a big question. So Finn and Rory as co-captains. I hate co-captains. I really do.
Well, I mean, I'm old enough to remember we had a captain and a pack leader. And that was basically it. But the thing I don't understand, and you're closer to the laws with your coaching and such, like, do the co-captains both get to speak to the referee?
I think they are allowed to. Well, it depends on the referee. You usually have your conversation with the referee at the beginning of the match before you come on and say, right, who's the captain? There will be and from what I can tell, that there is someone who will speak to the referee the most of the time, and I've got a feeling it's Rory Darge at the moment because he's doing all the press stuff and etc. And he will be closest to the referee because he's in the pack. And we have this conversation regularly on the pod of a lot of us believe that the captain should come from the forwards because they're closest to the referee most of the time, and fullbacks and wingers shouldn't be captain, but Finn's fairly close to everything anyway, so you would think he's got something to say, and he seems to deal with referees quite well, so it's an odd one.
Yeah, Finn's got this kind of light touch with refs, I think. Whenever you see him talking to the refs, he's kind of smiling and friendly. Not their best pal, but always being kind of easygoing.
Yeah.
Which, at the time he's been captain, has usually been in stark contrast to Jamie Ritchie, who always looks like he's going to stick one on the ref.
Yeah, very much so. Mind you, he was. It was quite an interesting chat. I don't usually recommend anyone to listen to other podcasts, but I'm sure everyone does. But the Scottish, the BBC Scotland Rugby podcast, I should stop that because they call themselves the Scottish Rugby Podcast, and they're not. They did a few interviews with different players, and was really quite interesting. And they had Jamie Ritchie on, and they were talking to him about. Obviously, he's gone through having the captaincy, losing the captaincy, and how he is. And he was saying that he was very proud of the fact that he dealt with it quite well. He feels that he didn't go off in a strop. He got stuck in and prepared his team, the guys who were going to start and be selected in the team as best as he can. And I think that says a lot about the guy. He seems to have taken it quite well,
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
So then the question. So then we've got no Scott Cummings. So Johnny Gray has been named in the squad. Him coming into this position is quite fortuitous because he is having an absolute stormer over in France. Am I right?
It seems to be. And Bordeaux are playing some fantastic rugby. If what I've seen on the European stuff and what talks well, they're playing an absolute fantastic style of game, which probably suits. It's probably, I guess, similar to the Glasgow style and probably to a degree to the Scotland style we want to play as well. So that works well for us. Yeah, I think I really rate Scott Cummings as a player, but I could easily have seen us, particularly for the bigger games, starting Gilchrist and Gray and putting Scott Cummings on the bench to come on later because he's a bit lighter, a bit more dynamic, etc. So I could see them starting Gray without any problem. I think Gilchrist will start. I don't think, as long as he's fit, I don't think there's any question about that. So it's who partners him. I guess you could argue that Gilchrist and Gray are maybe a wee bit too similar. But then big heavy second row guys. What do I know?
Yeah, well, it's an odd one because you usually like to have a sort of a pairing of a dynamic and a steady Eddie as such, and having someone like Johnny Gray who will hit every tackle that comes near him. Whereas Gilchrist seems to be more the line-out operator, and he seems to be the one, he calls the line-outs, etc. However much people think Scotland's line-outs are good or bad, it is quite an interesting one because you are looking at two fairly, maybe I'm doing them a disservice calling them steady eddies, but you are looking at two players who will hit their tackles, will go through a power of work. What I do find with Johnny Gray, however, is that he tends to get out of the way a lot quicker. As in, he'll put his tackle in and roll out and be looking for the next one, whereas Gilchrist tends to get tired and lays in the ruck. Then he gets a lot of penalties for lying around in the ruck. So we'll have to see, I guess. So are we going to go? So just for a wee update, Johnny McGinty seems to have broken his computer while he's in the break there. So this is why myself and Mark are just yapping away here, because not that we're filling time, we're just we're going through. But you're not hearing from Johnny McGinty. If you're listening to this and not watching, it's just because Johnny has disappeared for a wee while. So hopefully he'll be back as soon as we can. So Mark, are we going loaded to the Italy game? Are we going to be fully loaded? Are we going to try some new people? What's the thoughts?
I think because it's the first one, I think he's going to go fully loaded, and I think he's quite right to do so. If we talk about the Six Nations or any tournament being a matter of momentum, starting with throwing in a couple of new faces and potentially slipping up, I think that'd be horrific, and I don't think Tooney will risk it. And I'm with him on that. I mean, let's be honest, Benetton, irrespective of what we all know John Anderson's views are, Benetton have really been very good. And what team were they playing? There was an English team they were playing that they had a try disallowed to win it. That would have seen them with home round of 16 in the Champions Cup, and the try was disallowed, and it was for obstruction. It was never obstruction.
Oh, that was Bristol. I'm sure it was the Bristol game that they played. Was it
Bristol? Yeah, that's right. It was Bristol. And Benetton absolutely should have had the win there. That was horrifically denied to them. They're no slouches. So I think to go lightweight on them would be foolhardy.
Yeah, because you see, they've got Capuazzo is now fit and he's just looking amazing at the moment. Mind you, I suppose if Blair Kinghorn can look amazing in a Toulouse team, so can Capuazzo, I suppose. I'm only joking because I do love Blair Kinghorn and I'm enjoying seeing him do what he does. So it's a real interesting one for that. But I agree with you. We have to go fully loaded because Italy are the banana skin of the Six Nations. If we're talking about a wooden spoon, we're talking about Wales. We're talking about a banana skin. We're talking about Italy, because Italy will shock. We will have a shock at some point within the Six Nations this year with Italy. Something's going to happen, I can sure.
I think there's a severe risk to a couple of the teams, potentially England, because they already have a fairly low view of URC teams. And I think time's coming soon where Italy are going to turn England over. Quite happily.
Well, it depends what England turns up, I guess. And this is sounding awful like a French team that we're talking about, but with England, just as you say, I was talking with our good friend David on the Scrum of the Earth on Monday, and my conversation was mainly about I am worried that England are due a win against us at this moment in time, because we've been winning so many. We have won against them so many times now. They are due a win, and just in the sheer odds of it all, and maybe I'm being a bit negative here, but just the odds say that England are going to pull their finger out at some point and beat us. And I'm concerned it's going to be this year. But just as you say, they can have it is an interesting situation that we could probably find that Italy could destroy someone in England. England are setting themselves up as a worthy destroyee. Jonny is back. Hello, Jonny. How you doing? Oh, he's still got his.
Hello, I'm good. I've hopefully returned like Johnny Gray to save the day.
Yeah,
I'm back to fill the gap.
We'll just be talking about that. So, right, okay. Last couple of things on this, and then we'll maybe move over to the Patreon. But Jonny, any other bolters that are going to get a chance this Six Nation? Obviously, we've got Fergus Burke and Jack Mann, both in the team and both without caps. What's your thoughts? Are we going to drop? Is this too much of an important year that we'll see Tooney trying out the tombola, or do you think he will actually at some point?
No, I think that there's probably not going to be a massive amount of total randoms. I do think that it's going to potentially be a really big year outside of the main names for Kyle Rowe. I think with all the sort of niggles going on the wings, I think with the potential that TJ might have to step in at 12, I think his versatility is going to become really, really important in the Six Nations, and I think he's going to play a much bigger part and be much more of a key player than maybe we would have expected. So I've got my eye on him, I reckon. But I don't think, outside of people whose names we already know a little bit from either having a handful of caps or making their way through, I don't think there's going to be any total randoms. I hope not, anyway.
Yeah, well, there seems to be an awful lot of, especially Glasgow fans, saying, "Oh, these are the players that are definitely going to get their chance this time." Obviously, Kyle Steyn was going to get the chance, but I don't know if I think they're talking about him maybe coming in midway through the Six Nations. But Kyle Rowe, we've just added Aaron. I forgot his second name. The lad from
Aaron Reid.
Sorry? Aaron Reid from Sale, and you would think he would be the one that you'd put on the park instead of Duhan if Duhan's not going to play. But Kyle Rowe, just as you say, seems to have earned his place.
Yeah, and I think quietly, it's a very, 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 very outside shot. It depends a lot, obviously, on how his Six Nations goes, how other people's Six Nations goes, and who's in the room when the coaching staff comes around. But in summer, when you're looking for someone to play midweek games who can cover a lot of positions, who's got test experience in a lot of positions in the back three, Kyle Rowe is your man, especially compared to the other options from the other nations. So he's my probably going to play a big part in Scotland bolter, and he's my very, very, very outside Lions bolter, because I think if he covers fullback and wing through the whole Six Nations at a test level in the midweek Lions team, and there's not anybody from the other three countries that can do it to the standard that he can.
Interesting. You see, I was thinking Ben White was my sort of Lions bolter at 9. Actually, I had a wee thought about that, but obviously, we're not going to get totally dragged into the the Lions chat. I haven't even got the thing, mate. I could have got the music.
Do you want the jingle?
I want the jingle.
Let's do it.
It's the legally mandated Lions chat. The legally mandated Lions chat. We've heard so much about it that it makes us sick, but we've still got to chat about who Gatlin's gonna pick.
Scott Gatlin.
That needs updated now.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely think we're going to see Pierre Schumann going on the Lions. But any other bolters, Mark? What do you think?
I actually, I thought the scrum half one was really interesting. I think George Horn might be a bolter for the Lions. Yeah.
Now, there you go. That's manna from heaven.
He's playing to the Homer crowd, Craig, and he knows what he's doing.
You got to figure he's going to take, 4 scrum halves?
Yeah. You would think so.
Yeah, so you got Gibson Park.
Alex Mitchell.
Mitchell.
And then who?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, no, it's things like I still think Jonny Gray should go as well. I think Jonny Gray would be a great addition to.
Yeah. No, I actually think Ben White will go. I don't think he's a bolter. I think he'll go. I think the bolter is hard.
Interesting. Well, there we go.
I think Jonny Gray is going to be massively important in these Six Nations. I think he's more important than whoever replaces Sione, because there is not international experience in the second row without Scott Cummings. There's Grant Gilchrist and someone. So we are poised and expecting Jonny Gray to have a massive Six Nations.
Well, you would hope so, because and this is no disrespect to Sam Skinner, because Sam Skinner's done very well for Edinburgh, but Sam Skinner's not in the squad, and I'm not entirely sure if he got called up, he would be someone who would come in. And then you've got, and his name's just escaped me again, the Edinburgh lock that's been included in the squad.
Marshall Sykes.
Marshall Sykes. Now, the big issue I have is that we've got a discipline issue already with Scotland, Edinburgh, Glasgow. As such, Glasgow's not as massively penalty driven now than they used to be. And Marshall Sykes, Marshall Sykes tends to be one of those players that thinks, well, I'm going to have to just do something here because we need to sort something out. And he goes on and just gets a bit carried away. And gives away stupid penalties at times. So my only concern is he needs a little bit of maturing up, and maybe that's why he's been included in the squad, is to give him that sort of time in the squad and time with these high level players and to calm him down a bit and get. But I'm just not entirely sure. So just as you say, you have Jonny Gray, which I've got a feeling he will start now alongside Gilchrist. Who then goes on the bench to cover these guys, and it looks like Marshall Sykes might get his opportunity.
I think
I don't know.
I think if Max Williamson had been fit, he'd have been the guy. I think he's the coming man.
Yeah.
And I think it's a shame for him that he's got an injury. But with Cummings injured, it's really just the three of them, isn't it? Have we picked any more second rows?
There's nobody in the squad, I don't think. Who's the guy that plays for? Is it Northampton or Leicester? I'm sure it's Northampton. The second rower.
Oh no, it's Leicester. I can't remember his name either.
Yes. Is it Alex Craig?
Yeah. Is Alex Craig?
Alex Craig plays for Scarlets. He plays for Scarlets. There's Alex Craig and Alex Samuel, but then there is another one who plays for Leicester. You almost certainly covered this while I was away fighting my laptop, but I'm significantly more concerned about the second row than I am about 12.
Yeah.
I think Scott Cummings is not Sione Tuipulotu, but in terms of the need in that position and the replacements available in that position, second row is a much bigger concern to me than 12 is.
I keep saying it. Forwards decide who wins.
Yeah, and I agree that, because obviously I'm forward. But the only other question mark is, however, is that is tight head, because if looking at the squad, we've got Darcy Ray in there now. Now I talked with, as I said to you before, I talked with David this weekend over in the Scrum of the Earth, and I think Darcy Ray has come on, and he's proved me a little bit wrong, because I thought he was an absolute meathead and I didn't like him, and I thought I didn't know why Edinburgh were signing him, and they've signed him on for another two years, and he has been playing quite well for Edinburgh. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets his opportunity to come on, to be picked for Scotland, if he's going to,
I mean, again, the cliff edge in quality that we face after Xander is huge, right?
Yeah.
So what? Darcy Ray, Javin Sebastian, and who's the young lad that's coming through? Is it not Hill?
Hurd.
Hurd. That's
Yeah.
right. Will Hurd.
Will Hurd, yeah.
Well, I think Will Hurd and Darcy Ray are in the squad. I think Sebastian's been left out. So
Right. Okay.
and then you've got Schumann, Batty, and Suz on the loose head. So
Craig, you'll flay me for this. Elliot Miller Mills, tight head, loose head.
Miller Mills is a tight head.
Tight, yeah.
And he's not been included. Now I don't know if he's
really?
injured or not. He might be injured, but I'm not sure. But and then the
I've
last
actually
thing,
not seen him at Saints in a while either.
Aye, well that's the thing. That's what I was thinking. He's injured, but the big question then is, and also with Dylan Richardson now out, does Jonny Matthews get his opportunity to come into the squad or not? And that I'm the Jose Mourinho I prefer not to speak meme here because we all know how I feel about Jonny Matthews. Yeah, but we've
said
discussed it a little bit. He had a howler on the weekend, Jonny.
I am a Jonny Matthews truther. I always have been. I always will be. Saturday night across the board was Patriot language from Glasgow. But
we'll go
right
into that
at the sharp end of that was Jonny Matthews, because Jonny Matthews was not good. Although I was thinking of this when I was watching the game, I feel like howlers from Jonny Matthews tend to correlate quite often with him being left out of a squad. It feels like he gets left out of a squad and then maybe has like a very high profile stinker. And I don't know if it's like a psychological thing where they're related or not, but yeah, I have noticed in the past that it sort of ties up. Like if he's not in the squad, his next game's howling, and everyone goes, "Well, you see, that's why he's not in the squad."
Well, he did play for Scotland once in the autumn, and he had a howler then as well. But that's a different story. And we will come back to him because I have a hot take on Jonny Matthews and Glasgow's game on the weekend. So we will go to that in the Patreon and look at that. We're just about at 40 minutes, Jonny, and you should be proud of me because we're about to wrap up the free to air section of the pod. We're going to move over to Patreon, and as I've said before, you get a little bit more content. We talk a little bit more about the weekend that's been and the weekend that's coming up, and also we get a little looser with the language, and we can be a little bit more slanderous on Patreon because it's pay as you go rather than anything else. For £3 a month plus the VAT, you too can join our Patreon and come and listen to some of the absolute guff that we talk over on the Patreon side of things.
Do you know what? It's significantly cheaper than, at the risk of opening myself up to the kind of jokes that I'm unfairly targeted with all the time. I really fancied one of those new pistachio velvet lattes from Starbucks today, so I went to get myself one on the way home from work to mark the start of my long weekend, my unexpected long weekend.
Really
how much it cost me?
You just
£5.35. £5.35, and I was so outraged that I almost didn't buy it, even though I've been thinking about it all week.
That would take some money away from you building your duck island in your pond. It's ridiculous.
No, that's taxpayers that pay for that. I don't have to worry about that.
Exactly. On that Tory moment from Jonny McGinty, I want to say we're going to go over our Patreon. I want to say thank you for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, and I hope I haven't rambled too much on these fantastic painkillers I've been given. Big thanks to Jonny McGinty.
Thanks for having me, kind of.
And again, Border Badger himself, Mark Riley. Thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you all.
Good night, all, and good night. I did it again, Jonny. Thank you again.
Good evening and good night.
Right, let me sort the streams.
Yeah, because it's nice to just have a continuation rather than Ian Hayes switching us all off. Mind you,